Today what we're going to be doing is creating a seascape. And if you're in class with me, we're going to be using metallic and glitter crayons to make our seascape look even more interesting. If you're at home, use whatever drawing materials or painting materials you'd like. Alright, so last time we wrote some notes and talked about a landscape, and we created a foreground, middle ground, and background in a primary colored landscape. If you're at home, your paper might look like this. And what we're going to do today is we're going to be doing a seascape. So if you're at home, we're going to be using this one, and see how I'm holding it so it's wide or landscape style? We're going to do it that way. In our sketchbooks, we're going to turn the paper so that this edge of the paper is the bottom of our paper. And remember, your seascape doesn't have to have exactly the same things mine does, but we should layer it together. So the first thing we're going to draw is our foreground, things that are going to be closest to us and overlap. So first thing, from the bottom of your paper, we're going to draw some seaweed. See how it goes off the page and it's kind of wavy? You can do one or two. I'm gonna do another one over here that's has smaller leaves, so it has a stem, but then it has little leaves. And it comes from the bottom of my page because it's in the foreground. It's closest to me. Kind of like how we did in our landscape, let's go ahead and draw a line that goes behind these elements. So let's do a line here and draw a light because we're going to draw something else. Remember, don't go through things because they would not be see-through. So this is our foreground. We're swimming near some sea kelp. In the foreground too, I want you to put a rock, and it's going to go a little bit above this line. So watch, it'll start from the bottom, kind of go above like that. And then you can erase the line inside. So I made an arch, erase the line inside, as if this rock is now sitting behind this piece of sea kelp, but in front of our foreground. So if like yours, you wanted to do like just sea kelp or just seagrass, you can do that. You don't have to do this rock, but you can if you want to. And then we're gonna draw some coral for the last thing for our foreground. So for the coral, start with a little tube like that, 2 lines. And we're gonna kind of branch it off. And coral can kind of be all sorts of fun shapes, kind of like little fingers. So it's okay if your coral does not look like mine. See how I'm kind of going around making these almost like little finger shapes that go from my coral. All right. Remember, pause if you need to, go back if you need to. If you're in the classroom, ask me to go back, maybe play it slower. Okay, for our middle ground, we're gonna draw some sea life. So it's going to be close to us, but just a tiny bit farther away behind these foreground elements. So the first one I'm gonna do is a fish, and I'm gonna have it so it's slightly behind this coral. So I want you to lightly draw near the top of the coral an oval. And I did go through my coral very lightly because I then can erase inside the coral. So it looks like my fish is a little bit behind the coral. Now we drew a fish in the beginning of the year. You can draw it the way you want to, but take a moment to design your fish. So If you do the scales like we did before. In class, we're going to be coloring with crayons, so you might not want to do too many details. You could also do different kinds of lines. It's your fish, so it's up to you how you want to decorate it. Just make sure that it looks like it's behind the coral and seaweed, so that way it's in our middle ground. I'm also going to, you could draw another fish here behind your seaweed. I'm going to draw a jellyfish. I'm going to have them kind of swimming at an angle. So I'll do a curve, a little bumpy line, and then I'm going to lightly do some of the stingers going this way. I am going to cover that in crayon later, so it does not have to be perfect right now. Does not have to be perfect ever, really. Okay, before I go too much further, I'm going to start to do some coloring. If you're in class with me, we're using kind of metallic crayons to give it a kind of shimmer. But take a few minutes to go ahead and color first the things in the foreground and then the things in the middle ground. Don't color the background yet, because I'm going to show you how to make some sea life that looks really far away. Okay, so for our background, we can do a few things. I think what would be really cool is if we did kind of a sneaky kind of looking creature or sea life in the back. So I'm gonna do a turtle. I'm gonna do it really small. So I'm gonna do a circle with little head and little triangles for the turtle. And I do another one up here too. Now the key is to draw it small and with pencil first. Then I want you to take a normal blue crayon and color them in without any details. So you're going to do just the shape of the turtle in blue, colored in, almost like a shadow or a silhouette. For fun, I'm going to put some white because if you are in school with me, we are going to do a little wax resist. Maybe a few waves with some blue in the background. We're trying to blend in those background creatures with the water. All right, when you are done with all of your crayon, if we're in school, we're going to do a wax resist. So I'm going to be giving you, these are our kind of like watercolor palettes that we're going to keep. And just like normal watercolor, you have to activate it with water. So you'll have water and a brush. Make sure my brush is clean enough. And you're going to take a very wet paintbrush and rub it on the blue. See how I'm making circles and not jamming it in, but kind of making gentle circles around my blue. Once you start seeing blue kind of come off the edges, I want you to go ahead and paint. Because we use crayon, you can paint right over your crayon and it will show through still. You don't want your paper too wet, so just kind of try to spread that blue out. You can add a little bit of purple if you want near the bottom, because as water gets deeper, it gets darker. You don't want to use too much water because we don't want it to take a long time to dry. After it's dried for about a minute, I'm going to give you a tissue. And you are going to first lay your tissue on your paper and rub it. You're not rubbing it back and forth, you're kind of just blotting it. Get extra water off. Then you're gonna take that tissue or paper towel, same thing, put it onto your paint palette, not rubbing it, kind of just blotting it. So it doesn't move, but you put pressure on it to get the extra water off. While that is drying, you can take your paint palettes and put them back to back, because if these are a little wet, we don't want the colors touching each other. And you can put it into your baggie. This baggie will actually stay in your specials folder for us to use other times. So it's like your own personal paint tray. If you still have time, let this stay out as long as you can. And then at the end of class, we will put it away. Once again, if you're at home, you can, if you have watercolor, you can do the same thing. or you can just color lightly in the background and around your images. Great job with your seascape. If you're in class, I hope you enjoyed using our sparkly crayons. Next time we will do a cityscape, once again using foreground, middle ground, and background.